We've done a fair number of videos on tongs, but they've all been essentially flat jaw tongs. Although flat jaw tongs can be adapted to other styles, they've essentially just been flat jaw tongs. But we've done a video on how to take flat stock and draw it out and do a twisted bit to make a very simple pair of flat jaw tongs that can be done without any tongs to work on it. Fairly easy to draw out at the anvil. We've taken that same concept of drawing the reins out first to a piece of 5/8 square bar to make a nice solid stock tong in a more conventional way. And we've progressed to a very traditional approach on making tongs, of making the jaw and forge welding the rein onto it. So all of these steps to get a basic flat jaw tongs have been repeated several times for different styles of tongs. We even did one on Ken's custom iron tongs, the rapid tongs and the quick tongs, which have some of the work done for you and are a very good way to make your first few pairs of tongs. Matter of fact, you can probably make all the tongs you'll ever need using their product. But I've been getting a lot of requests lately for slotted jaw tongs, and that's this style of tong. The slotted jaw are just that. They're flat jaw tongs for the most part, but they've got a slot down the middle. And that slot is an excellent place to hold on to flat stock, and it'll hold, this one pair will hold a couple of different sizes of flat stock. It tends to want to hold 1/4 inch, but it can hold 1/4 by 3/4, 1/4 by 1. Probably do okay with 1/4 by 1/2, and even 1/4 by 1 1/4 or so. And that's not bad. They work a little bit as flat jaw tongs, although they're kind of squirrely that way, and I don't use them like that. But because of the slot, they also hold round bar extremely well and square bar extremely well. Now this pair that I have in my hand is the very first pair of these I ever saw. This pair was made by Mike Boone. Some people may know him as Smith Boone because he actually changed his name at one point. And I got these at a blacksmithing conference 15 or 20 years ago probably. Excellent pair of tongs. I've made my own version of them and they work pretty well, although I still like Mike's a little bit better. And I use these quite a bit, and people have been asking about these. They saw these in the video on making the fork because I was holding the material for the fork in this pair of tongs. And it can be a little bit floppy, but it's not going to fall out. It's not going to fly across the shop or land on the floor. It's good solid grip. So let's look at making a pair of those. As I said, we have covered how to achieve a tong blank numerous times, and that gives you a flat jaw set of tongs, and this is an adaptation of flat jaw tongs. So go back and watch any of the previous videos making tongs to see how you can make a tong blank. Watch all the videos on making tongs and you can see at least 4 different ways to achieve a flat jaw tong blank that you can then adapt to the slotted jaw tongs. I'm just not going to take the time today to go through that whole procedure. We're just going to concentrate on what makes this pair of tongs special. But we also talked about Ken's custom iron tongs, and they'll sell you a set with a slot cut through it already. And that's a good quick way to make it, and we're going to address that as well today. I've already drawn the reins out and got those all done on a pair of the rapid tongs. These are the smaller ones, the quick tongs are the bigger ones. And so we're going to look at that. The pair that we're going to make that are totally from scratch today, although you won't see all of this, started off as 3/4 square bar, 8 inches long. I've drawn the reins out under the power hammer. In fact, I've done the whole thing under the power hammer. This has very little handwork. It's pretty quick. I can get to this point in about a half an hour under the power hammer, and that saves hours of video time getting to this point. So this is what we're going to start with. When I set up this blank, I made this about 2.5 inches. There's nothing super magical about that number. I just like my jaws a little longer on these. Usually I'm about 1 3/4 or 2. But I think the longer jaw makes these a little better. for what they are. And this is going to be a little fussy. This is a great place for a striker and somebody to help hold your material for you. Now this slot punch is about 1.1 inch by 1/4 inch. And I like the 1/4 inch. It'd be nice if it was a little longer, so I'm going to actually punch this in 2 steps to make a little bit longer slot. Because my tong jaw is about 1 inch wide, and I'm going to take a 1/4 inch out of it, that leaves me about 3/8 on either side, so I'm going to step back about 3/8 to make the punch. And that way I end up with a border that's all about the same size, and I'll do that all the way to the back. And that just makes a nice slot. We are just going to continue to punch through this. Step my punch back in the slot and establish my entire length that I want to punch here. I'm using a slot punch to punch through. Fortunately, I forgot the microphone, so I've been talking about this for about 4 heats now, and you've missed it because I forgot the microphone, and I apologize for that. Now, this would have been better to start from the back side so I could get this whole tong up on top of the anvil for this side. But I started upside down, so. I will not end up punching all the way through from this side because I got nowhere to go with the punch. I've got a nice slot established, and now when I come back to the top, I'll be able to work over the hardy hole. If you're going to make a lot of these, a bolster plate that fits this slot would really be handy. You could also put this in the vise with the jaws open the distance, or the thickness of your chisel. But this does work. That slug off there. Not quite all the way. I've got a little bit more to punch out at the end. I just want to clean that little bit of end up here. The better supported this is, the easier this will be. Which is why a bolster plate or the vise comes in handy. So you get an exact size slot to punch into. So that's really all we need to do for the slot. Do that with both pieces. I have a piece of 1/4 by 1.5 inch mild steel. I've ground the ends so it doesn't mushroom over too badly. Put a taper on this and rounded the edges, and I'll use this as a drift to define the slot. The mild steel won't last forever, but I could probably do a dozen pairs of these before it's really an issue. It also doesn't fit down in my hardy hole this way, but if I go on the diamond it does, so I need to remember that as I drift this. And it's going to take several driftings. As I clean this forging up, my hole gets smaller, so I'll drift it back open again. Now I've actually managed to close that gap up completely, so I'm not going to be able to get my drift in there, but it'll be easy enough to open that up with a chisel, I think. It's pretty simple to just drive a fairly flat chisel in here and just create an opening. And then that opening will fit your drift. This gets a little less fiddly each time you do it. Now your drift has been in hot material, so don't pick it up with your hands unless you're sure it's cold. Always safe to grab it with a pair of tongs. Remember, I can't drive that all the way into that hardy hole. I also could have used almost a 2-inch drift here instead of this one. But it's all fine. Each time we do this, we get a little closer to what we want. That's really about all I want to do with the drift. The slot needs refining, but I think it'll be better done with a file at this point. So now we want to roll the end of this over just a little bit so that the slot actually comes all the way out instead of being stopped by the end of the tongs. So it's just a matter of bend that over a little bit. Doesn't have to be a super sharp bend, just enough that that slot you bothered to put in there can be accessed by a round or square bar or the side of the rectangular bar. And again, we'll refine some of that with a file here in a second. This is probably a good time to go ahead and punch the hole. Let's start the hole with the jaw hanging off the far side. That allows us to roll the whole thing up on the face of the anvil now. Okay, now we can go do a little bit of filing. Our goal is to open this slot up, and it's pretty close on the back side, but it's kind of closed up on the front because of the way the material behaves when you punch it. Ideally, you get that punched and drifted perfect, but that's fairly rare unless you have a really good bolster plate. Doing this under the fly press would probably do a really good job. And maybe someday we'll do a pair that way. But to get a file in there, I'm going to start with a drill. Yeah, we've all done that trick. It's not the best thing for your drill bits. It does get a file in here. I'm just using a 1/4-inch chainsaw file. This feels like it takes forever, but it's really not that bad. Once you have enough room, a flat file is much faster. But finish the ends up with your round file. And that way you won't have any issues at the very ends. When you get down to the end, make sure the bar you want to hold fits. Well, that was a lot more fiddly to get the slot open than I had anticipated. I think with a punch and bolster that were matched, the slot would have punched much cleaner and there would have been less issues with the drift. It opened up the slot very nicely and there only would have been a little bit of filing. That was about a half hour's worth of filing, but filing works and it got the job done. And I think I'm going to be happy with the tongs. I'm just not real happy with how we got there. So it's time to put the rivet in. Everything looks like it's going to work just fine. I've got a 5/16 hole, so I've got a 5/16 rivet I'm going to put in. People have asked about riveting these cold. You can, but after you get above about a 1/4 inch rivet, it gets kind of tough. And to get a nice rivet head and make your life easy, you might as well get it hot. We have a forge. The rivet in the hole. Stand it up in the rivet header. This is the rivet header supplied by Ken's Custom Iron, by the way. Very nice rivet header. I may not have left enough rivet. My tongs are a little bit thicker than I anticipated. But that's okay. That's enough to actually do the job. So we're going to head this side, just like that. Another 1/4 inch of rivet and I would have been okay. So there's a little tweaking to do, and of course they don't operate real smooth at this stage either, but not bad. So we're going to get them hot again. We're going to work them. We're going to close up the jaw so it's what we want. Make sure the reins are what we want. I'm going to make the flat of these tongs fit a 3/8 bar. Nothing magical about that, just kind of what I decide to do. And I'm going to have to pull the reins apart because I got no squeeze. They come together, so I'm going to go to the vise to do that. This is a little harder than flat jaw tongs because you'll crush the little kick out that makes these so useful. So you got to be careful when you put these in the vise. I'm going to open the vise up wide enough to get this in. Now, this is one of those places where you really wish you had a helper. And I've got the kick up below the height of the vise jaws here. And I'm using my feet and my knees, I think, to do the vise handle. There we go. Yeah, this would be a lot easier if I had help. One of you folks come out of the camera there and come give me a hand. I suppose that's probably not going to happen though, is it? But it's not too hard once you do that. It'd also help if the camera wasn't right in the way. That pretty much took care of that though. That's pretty much what I wanted. The reins are nicely positioned now. Now if those reins had come together a little more openly at that stage, I could have held that piece in the jaws and used one hand, but because the reins were touching, I couldn't get that clamped together the way I wanted, which is why I had to go through the gymnastics of the vise there. But it is not the first time I've had to use my knee to tighten the vise, nor will it be the last time. So that holds as a pair of flat jaw tongs, a piece of 3/8 bar stock. I'm going to put a little wax on these just to make them look pretty, keep them from rusting. Well, these tongs are finished. They hold 3/8 on the flat, as just like a pair of flat jaw tongs would. They're very solid for a piece of 1/2-inch square bar. Good and solid for 1/2-inch round bar. And for 1/4 by 3/4, which is what we were working with yesterday, they're pretty good, although I think I could file that slot just a little bit wider. The other thing I noticed, these are the ones I was using the other day for this 1/4-inch bar, and they were plenty sufficient. They weigh probably less than half as much as these do. These tongs are overkill. These were made out of 3/4 square bar, and I think we could have done 5/8 or we could have done something else. I think I went way overboard on these. They're going to be good and solid, but I might get in here and open this slot up even further and make this more suitable for 3/8 bar on the edge, because I think this is just overkill for 1/4-inch bar. So this was a learning experience for me. I hope it was a learning experience for you. This is one of those videos that didn't go as smoothly as I would like. There was a lot of stuff off camera that didn't go quite as well as I had hoped, like dead batteries and forgetting to even put the microphone on and not having the camera on when I thought I had it on and doing part of the demo without the camera and things like that. So it didn't all go smooth. And as I said, I think there are better ways to punch this if we take the time and make the bolster plate and we think about it a little bit more ahead of time. This was kind of impromptu because I got a lot of questions last night about this pair of tongs, so I thought we would just do it today. So that's what happens sometimes when you don't take the time to plan ahead as well as you would like. Nevertheless, we pulled it off. It's a great pair of tongs. They're big, they're heavy, and if I file that slot open, they're going to hold bigger, heavier material than what these hold, and there's absolutely no reason why that won't be a good, useful pair of tongs in the shop. Just not real happy with the way we got there. I felt a little klutzy today, I guess is a good word for it. I know I said we were going to do the Ken's Custom Iron Tongs, but I think we've just kind of run out of time for this video. So we'll finish these for another video, and we're going to look at more of Ken's products. For getting the slot cut, having it pre-cut by Ken is probably a pretty good idea, because that was a real pain. But I think we can do better, and we're going to make another pair of these someday after I make some new tooling. So I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. I want you to stay safe, and I want you to wear your safety glasses or face shield if you need it. And I think that's all we got to say today, so we'll see you for the next one.